All right. 7:10, kickoff time. Shout out to everybody in the building that's here. Thank you for taking some time out on a Wednesday to come get some good information from one of the best in the building. Crystal is going to be here sharing, her story and how she got started rehabbing and showing you guys exactly what it's going to take for you to be a successful rehabber like she is. I've personally been to a bunch of Crystal's projects, and I'm telling you, she never ceases to amaze me. When I walk in the building, I mean, she got gold accents on the doorknobs and on the faucets, and she got the skylights. I mean, it's just, to me, either you got the gift to do it when it comes to certain stuff or you don't. And when it comes to designing and being creative, man, she's definitely one of the best that I've seen. So I'm definitely glad to have her here. Usually, for anybody who's new here, if it's your first time, welcome. Buy Back the Block LA is a group that we started in honor of our brother Nipsey Hussle after he was killed. And we started this group to be able to focus on financial literacy and Black empowerment and group economics for our community. And while we do our best to be able to bring, some of the best people that we can find in our network to the community to be able to share new information that might change your perspective on what's possible and what you can do. And you can find us, by the way, if you're not following us, please follow us on our Instagram. It's Buy Back the Block LA. Grab your phone right now, go there, follow us. You'll know about everything that we're going to be doing coming up by following that page. That's Buy Back the Block LA on IG. Also, if you're a Twitter head, hop on over to Buying Back LA on Twitter. Those are two really good places to be able to find us, and we're definitely most active on Instagram. We usually start these meetings off with a little bit of news, real estate news, current events, Black current events, whatever's going on. And then we go into our lesson. But today, I don't have a ton of news. I just had one interesting tidbit that came up. And I read earlier this week that Southern California housing prices had jumped to an all-time high in April of 600, the average price, 655,000. $655,000 in Southern California. So, look, I'm a millennial. I'll be honest. I don't know too many people my age who can afford a house for $655,000, right? So when we tell you guys that the overall plan is to get Black people, aka undesirables, out of Los Angeles and out of Los Angeles County, this is how they're going to do it, right? This is not the era of Jim Crow. They're not going to show up with hoods on and masks. They're not going to, put a cross in your front yard and set it on fire. This is how they're going to get you out. They're going to look at what your community makes, what your average income is, median income, and they're going to make sure they jack those prices up to the point to where you can't get out. They're going to where you can't stay, should I say. They're going to strangle you. That's how they're going to do it. And it's going to be legal. And there's not really much you're going to be able to do about it besides finding a way to buy something, or if you have something in your family already, you got to be vigilant about making sure that your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc., understand the value of not selling. They can't gentrify what they can't own. So if you have property in your family, please reach out to an attorney. Make sure that property is in a trust first and foremost. And it doesn't cost a ton. You have attorneys out here who will set your trust up for $500, $600, right? And when those properties go into a trust, that means that you're going to avoid one of the biggest pitfalls that families fall into when estates aren't planned out properly, and that is probate court. I do a lot of marketing to probate court, to the probate cases, and for people who fall into that under that umbrella, the first wholesale deal I did out here in California was a probate deal. And probate basically is the process by which assets in a state, houses, yada yada, cars, whatever, are liquidated when someone passes away. If you have your properties in the trust, which believe me, I know it sounds complicated, but if you have your properties in a trust, you bypass that process. There's no court fees, judges, whoever involved in your family's business. There's nobody with their hands in your family's pocket taking a piece of what your loved one intended for you and yours to be able to have in full. So I can't stress that enough. Please spread the word if you can throughout the community. Even if you don't fully understand what a trust is, just tell people. When you're at the barbershop, you at the beauty salon, hey, you know y'all need a trust, right? You know, just throw it out there. You know, whenever you having casual conversations, just make sure it becomes part of the lexicon, part of our daily dialogue, right? Also, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Right now, we're in a very, very, very dire time in our community. You know, I know we like to laugh and the party and to turn up in the whole nine, but we're not in a position right now where we need to be embracing any of those behaviors. We've been about that for long enough, and we've seen what it's gotten us, right? No hospitals, no schools, no banks of any note. And yes, I'm talking to you, One United, where I actually bank. You know, my father is currently hospitalized. He's been hospitalized since November with a stroke. And if I told you guys some of the things that I've seen, some of the atrocities that have happened to him inside of these hospital systems and being cared for by, you know, so-called people of color, so-called minorities, you know, you wouldn't believe it. And what it highlighted for me was that we have to have our own. Nobody's going to take care of Black people like Black people. That just is what it is. And we have to focus on how we're going to get to that point eventually of having our own schools so we can educate our own kids and not leave them to whatever the agenda is of the current system, right? We have to figure out how we're going to have hospitals so we can take care of our elderly, we can take care of our sick, because you know nobody's going to take care of you like somebody who's Black, who's about Black people. The warmth that we get from each other, we just don't get it from other communities, and that's fine. You know, I'm not out here campaigning looking for love in all the wrong places. I'm looking for love here at home in our community, and I want to see us do better when it comes to those things. You might be aware of the fact that right now we're sitting on the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. You might have seen your president in Tulsa giving a speech full of empty words that aren't going to lead to any real economic repair for our community. And yes, I'm going to speak straight about this. I know some of you guys are diehard blue no matter who guys and all of that, but I'm just going to be honest with you. You haven't gotten anything out of that, and we have to smarten up at this point. You know, when I saw a lot of behavior that made me sick to my stomach this week at that Tulsa quote unquote celebration. I saw a lot of older Black people who had suffered through that massacre, and I saw a lot of younger Black politicians, you know, younger compared to these people, who I'm seeing people hitting Soul Train lines, electric sliding, yada, yada. This is not the behavior that we need to be engaged in at this current point. These older Black people lived through a massacre, and nobody's talking about what kind of dollars and cents we're going to put in their pockets to compensate them for the terror that they had to go through. Fortunately, here in California, they've gotten the ball kicked off, if you haven't heard, this week with a reparations task force. Keep in mind, for other groups of people, they don't have to have all these task force and studies, but they seem to have to do extra research when it comes to us. But they've kicked off the ball with this so-called task force. And although I'm not a fan of it, I'm not going to speak down, and you shouldn't speak down on anybody who's willing to step a foot forward to help Black people get the reparations that they are owed in this country. Now, let me underscore the word owed, right? This is not a handout, because other communities will be quick to say, oh, you just want a handout. Oh, you guys want something for nothing. No, this is what we call a debt. This debt is owed and it was never paid. And you better believe that if any other group of people in this country were owed the amount of money that we're owed after suffering the atrocities that we've suffered, they would not let the government forget about it. So you better not let the government forget, and you better not let anybody shame you and to not laying claim to what you are owed. It is your birthright, point blank, period. All right. So that's the end of my rant for the beginning of our meeting, but I just need to drive some of these points home. Again, I am not going to take the heads off of any particular politician today, but if you saw your favorite politician giving empty words and dancing at that celebration when there was literally nothing to celebrate, and you're still vouching for them, you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself why. They should have been there pounding the pavement for legislation and for financial repair. Okay. So with that being said, I am now going to relinquish the floor because I really, really, really am excited about having Crystal here. She's going to really drop a lot of gems today about what needs to happen for you to be able to get on track as a rehabber. And I'm sure she's probably going to talk about private money and all the things that you need to know. So Crystal, I'm about to make you co-host so you can share screen. And can you go ahead and unmute for me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We got you.
What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Let me turn on my video. Can you see my big shiny forehead?
Oh, with the faux locks. I love the hair. I love it.
With the faux locks. What's up, everybody? You mind if I go live on Instagram?
Do I mind?
Yeah.
Hell no. I wish I need to be thinking about going live, man. You got me out here realize I'm slacking.
All right. Give me 1 second. What's up, everybody? I'm glad to have you guys here. Let me go ahead and figure out how to share my screen. Okay. So you guys can hear me, you can see me. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, we're good.
Got you. And I'll man the chat for you, by the way. So if there's questions, I'll jump in when it makes sense. If not, we'll hold them to the end, but I got you though.
Okay, cool, because I cannot multitask. They were gonna have to wait to the room anyway. It says 4 people are in the waiting room. Can you do that too, or?
Oh yeah, I got the velvet rope. Don't worry about it.
All right, cool. All right. Figure it out real quick. All right, you guys. Today we're gonna talk about house flipping 101, what I feel you need to be successful based upon my experience. So again, welcome everybody. How y'all doing? For those of you who do not know me, my name is Crystal. I am known on the social media streets as SoCal Flip Gal. And just a little bit about me. I grew up in the LA area. I went to school out here in LA. I went to UCLA, go Bruins. And I like to travel. So this is me in Egypt, snorkeling in the Red Sea. This is me in front of the pyramids. And these are just some of the podcasts that I've been featured on, the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Shout out to Sam, Voyage LA, House Flipping HQ, and the Real Deals podcast. So I share all that with you guys just so you know, I kind of know what I'm talking about, just a tad bit. So a little bit about my journey, how I got started in real estate. So I used to work a job, and my job was we would purchase non-performing junior liens. So people who were not paying their second mortgage, we would purchase those mortgages and get them reperforming. So that's what I used to do. And then, one day, Friday afternoon, after lunch, it's about 2 p.m., you get that little, I'm ready to fall asleep feeling around Friday afternoon. My boss calls me into the conference room, and I'm like, okay, what can he possibly want? Why is he calling me into the conference room? Long story short, he told me I was fired, right? And I felt really bad. And I had a decision to make. I had to figure out, do I go find another job? Do I pursue this real estate thing or what? So I really had to put the pieces of the puzzle together. I would go to these different meetings, and it's one meeting and they're talking about one strategy, another meeting and they're talking about another strategy, and you're really trying to put together this real estate puzzle. But the strategy that I chose to get started in real estate was wholesaling. And the reason why I chose that strategy is because I was recently fired, right? So I had a lot of time, but I did not have a lot of money. So wholesaling kind of plays to the fact of if you have some time to grind or whatever, but you don't necessarily have a lot of money to get started in other strategies, like to go directly to flipping or go, directly into private lending or go directly into being a landlord or something like that. So that's how I got started wholesaling, right? So I would literally go driving for dollars. And driving for dollars is basically driving around the city looking for ugly beat up houses. I know we all seen them. And this is like literally what my car looked like. It was a 94 Infiniti J30. So I would drive around looking for those ugly houses that have, the messed up roof, the overgrown grass. They got the furniture on the curb, like they just got kicked out the house or something like that. Houses like that we see, but we like kind of don't pay attention to them because we're just like, oh, they're whatever. They're the neighborhood eyesore, right? So driving for dollars, I did that, write down the names and the phone and the addresses. Back then I was sending letters and postcards, and I would say after about 4 rounds of sending letters and postcards, I finally got a seller to call me back, and she told me she was interested in selling. We met up, we agreed upon the numbers and stuff like that, and this was my first off market wholesale deal that I closed for slightly under $14,000. So, and that was back, I started my journey back in like 2014 is when I went full time. And now I continue to do this full time, but not only am I wholesaling, I've been able to save enough money to from the wholesaling to where now I am flipping my own houses, and now I can be my own cash buyer. And that was like one of my goals when I first got started wholesaling. Like I wanted to be my own cash buyer. So here is an example of a house that I did. This is a house that had to go accents. So here's an example. This house is right off of King and Western, 90062. If we from LA, the area. This is what the house looked like when I first got it. So this was an example on the left here, the living room, the dining room, and then there was a family room behind that. And then to the right here was the backyard. You can see all this stuff was like really overgrown. I think the situation here was the owner had passed away, the kids had inherited, they did not have a trust, so it had to go through probate. So perfect example of what Danny was speaking about. And because it had to go through probate, it was a long drawn out process. They had to pay attorneys and stuff like that. So the money that they could have gotten, actually more money, they didn't, because they had to pay attorneys and stuff like that. So like Danny mentioned earlier, please, 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 we cannot stress enough the importance of a trust. So here's it's that same angle. So this is again the living room, the dining room, and what was the family room. And in this project, what I ended up doing was I tore down the family room. It was a 2-1, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and it was about, I want to say 1,200 square feet. And I tore down the family room, added on to create like a kitchen, more of an open concept. And I added an extra bathroom, and then I added an extra bedroom and bathroom and closet to create a master suite. And then I also converted the garage to an ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit. So that garage that you saw in that other picture, I converted that to a unit that you can actually live in. So briefly, the numbers: purchase price was about $385, rehab was about $215, and other costs like selling costs, escrow, carrying costs, and stuff like that was about $120,000. And we sold the house for $915,000, which gave me like a rough profit after you subtract out all the numbers of slightly under $200,000. So this is the same view, the living room. You don't see the living room, but this is the dining room and the kitchen. Those are those gold accents Danny was talking about right there. So this is what the house looks like. And I just wanted to show you guys what's possible. And I'm actually doing it in LA. I'm not in LA doing it anywhere else. Like, I want to show you guys that it's possible to do this in your own neighborhood. You don't have to, like, I'm not comfortable going out of state. Like, so I had to figure out a way how to make this work for me in LA. So question of the day is, what does a person need to be prepared to take on a fix and flip project? Basically, Crystal, teach me what you do, right? Teach me to do what you do. So just some points of discussion for today. I want to touch on a couple of things. The mindset of a successful flipper. some common misconceptions, and it was 5 pillars, but I think it's like 7 pillars now to have a successful house flipping business. And then we'll do a little bit of Q&A at the end. So we're about to get into the meat of the presentation. Make sure you have your pens, your papers, your notepads, your recording devices, whatever you use to take notes, make sure those are out. Feel free to tag me on social media, either Facebook or Instagram at SoCalFlipOut, and I'll be sure to shout you out. So is everybody ready? Type hashtag let's get it if you are ready. Type hashtag let's get it if you are ready. Y'all ready? I trust that y'all ready because I'm not monitoring the chat. All right. So the first thing, why I feel most house flippers fail, or why some of y'all don't even get started. So it's the mindset. And I'm not, Eric Thomas, I'm not Tony Robbins, I'm not none of those people. But, they touch on mindset, and I know we kind of brush over it like one of those, woo-sa, woo-woo kind of words or whatever, but you really have to shift your thinking, right? So one of the ways to shift your thinking to be comfortable getting started being a house flipper, there's 3 things. Number 1, you have to be comfortable with not getting everything right. And I still struggle with that today. Like, we have to get comfortable. We have to step out of that perfectionism. I think a lot of times people want everything to be perfect. It's not always going to happen. Number 2 is knowledge. You have to be comfortable not knowing every step of everything. Like, I think a lot of times people want to know step A through Z, 1 through infinity, and going back, right? Like, I don't know everything. When I first got started, I did not know everything. I knew maybe step A, B, and C, but I trusted that, when I got to step B and C, like, then I would know to do D and E and stuff like that. So you have to be comfortable not knowing everything. And I think a lot of times we have that, let me just learn one more thing and then I'll get comfortable flipping houses. Like, you just have to take a risk. And that leads me to my third one, which is taking a risk, being comfortable taking what I call a calculated risk. We just not out here, throwing money at, flipping houses or whatever without, doing our due diligence and stuff like that. Be comfortable taking a calculated risk. So those were the 3 things when I kind of look back on, like, because people always ask me, like, well, how did you go from wholesaling to house flipping? Those are the 3 things that I think really sort of helped me to transition and continue to do house flipping. So going back to why I feel most house flippers fail or don't get started, number 1 is lack of marketing. Lead generation. Marketing is the lifeline of any business. Without having any type of solid marketing plan, your house flipping business will not thrive, right? You need to have a consistent lead generation system. Second reason why I feel a lot of people who are interested in real estate and house flipping and don't get started is because y'all are all over the place. One day you want to flip houses, then you want to flip houses in Detroit, then you want to flip them in Cleveland, and then you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to lease option this gas station that's in, overseas somewhere. Like, a lot of people are all over the place, and especially when it comes to house flipping, a lot of people don't really fully understand what a deal is. They have no clearly defined parameters on what is a deal to them, and they rely on others like real estate agents to tell them if it's a deal or not. So that's number 2 reason why I feel most people fail or don't get started. And that kind of leads me to the third one, which is they don't really fully understand the numbers. You take on deals that have really thin margins, right? You like this, like, dude right here with this shirt that's really tight, bro. That does not fit. The shirt is too small. Your deal is too small. It has thin margins. You try to force a deal to work by not really understanding the numbers that are involved and accounting for all the costs. And you leave yourself with little to no profit, especially if, 1 or 2 major things go wrong. And then lastly, why most people fail to get started is you have no clue what you're doing. You fail to plan and you fail to manage because you don't know how. You don't properly plan for or know how to manage contractors. You don't properly or know how to plan or manage the rehab process, and you set yourself up for failure. So I want to kind of like eliminate some of those things that we talked about going forward. So you're probably wondering, well, Crystal, like I get what you're saying here, but what does the perfect remodel look like? And so I broke it down like this. First, you have to find the property, you acquire it. After you acquire it, you renovate it, and then you flip it, right? And that seems very basic. And in between finding and acquiring, you have to analyze. In between acquiring and renovating, you have to plan. You have to plan. I cannot stress enough the planning process. Between renovating and flipping it, you have to manage that renovation process. And then between flipping it and then finding your next property, it's important to review and kind of wrap up the project and see kind of like, what was what and how you could do better. So we're going to go through all of these things tonight. So pillar number 1, find. What steps to take to find your next house flipping project? And that's fine. So step number 1, you need to pick a market. You need to decide, are you going to do this in LA? You're going to do it, up north. You're going to do it, like I said, Tampa or whatever. You need to pick a location. And then after you pick a location, I feel like you need to decide whether or not you're going to do on market or off market. So if you decide to go on market, finding properties on market, a couple of ways to do that is to network with other real estate agents. And then also you could, go on Zillow or Redfin if you do not have access to the MLS, and do keyword searches like, TLC, it's investor special, cash only, won't qualify for financing, probate. Those are those keywords in the MLS. Like when I'm looking for a property, I look for those words on the MLS so that I know that they are, a house that I'm looking for, a house where I could add value to, because I'm not trying to buy something that anybody else, a regular home buyer, trying to buy. I'm trying to buy something that I could add value and and make a profit from. So those are some of the keywords that I look for if you're, searching through the MLS. And then if you want to go off market, like Danny said he would, he does marketing to probates. And I like to categorize off market deals via, different types of categories of distress, like what we call motivated sellers, right? So there's physical distress, there's financial distress, and then there's circumstantial distress. So physical distress is any type of property that needs repairs. Like I said, when I went driving for dollars, looking for stuff that's fire damage, that's boarded up, any type of overgrown grass, any kind of code violations. One good thing, I think LAPD, sometimes they put out on Twitter like, oh, we're going to, the 1300 block of 48th Street. It's like, oh, really? You are? So that's like a good clue of something that's possibly fire damaged. And you don't have to pay for the marketing. The fire department is telling you exactly where this messed up property is. So that's one clue. One example of physical distress. Next type of circumstantial distress is financial. So people who are behind on their property taxes, people who may have lost their jobs and they're facing like pre-foreclosure or foreclosure, or people who have filed bankruptcy. And then the last category of distress is circumstantial. So these are people who maybe, again, like a probate, they inherited a property. They don't want it. They live somewhere else and they don't want to be bothered with it. Maybe there's an absentee owner who's been a landlord for the last 20, 30 years. And he's like, you know what? I'm tired. I just cash me out. I'm tired of dealing with these tenants. And then maybe some other circumstances are things like divorce, or maybe you may run into an older person who lives in like a 2-story and they want to downgrade to like an assisted living or like a smaller home. So those are some examples of ways to find property off market. And then next thing, you have to decide how you're going to contact these people. Are you going to network? You're going to go on social media, bandit signs, email, text messages, ringless voicemail, cold calling, direct mail, SEO. These are all examples of how to contact these people that I just talked about. So for pillar number 1, finding, what I want you to take from this, what I just talked about, is to find, you have to decide how you will market and generate leads so that you can have a consistent deal flow of houses to flip. So the next part, before we get to acquiring, we have to analyze the property. So say we went on the MLS or whatever, we found an investor special, they're like, oh, we think this is good. how are we going to analyze this property? So there's a popular rule out there that's called the 70% rule. And the 70% rule says that my maximum offer, the top number that I can offer a seller that I could put into a property is I take the after repair value, which is a short way ARV, and after repair value is basically what I feel the property would sell for after I, fix it up and everything. I'll multiply that by 70%, and then I subtract the repairs, and that's my maximum allowable offer MAO. And that's a very, basic common rule that people teach to analyze properties, right? But I say F that rule. I hate that 70% rule. And the reason why I hate it is because, number one, I feel like, first of all, I don't know who came up with it. Like, I don't know why it's not like the 63.5% rule. Like, I'm just a number person, so it just like really irritates me. And I think another reason why I don't like it is because I don't feel like this is applicable to all markets, especially if you're in a competitive market like LA. You really need to have your numbers dialed in. I think a lot of times people lose out on opportunities and properties because they're relying on some, second grade math equation to figure out if they're going to make $50,000. And then you have someone over here who's like really dialed in on their numbers. And then they end up offering, a lot more because they know their numbers. They're not really relying on this rule. And you're like, oh, they pay too much. Well, no, not really. They just really know their numbers and it works for them. So I say F the 70% rule. I don't like it. And the other reason why I don't like it, like I said, I feel like it hides a lot of the real costs that go into house flipping and people don't fully understand. So some of the costs that are associated with flipping, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some of them. The cost of the rehab, buying costs, so like title fees, escrow fees, and stuff like that. Carrying costs, so your actual monthly payments. No, I'm sorry, like carrying. I'm sorry, I confused the two. Monthly interest payments. So that if you're doing a hard money loan, the money that you have to pay to the hard money lender every month. I meant to say closing costs, buyer's closing costs. So for example, if you're getting a hard money loan, you might have to pay like 2 points or whatever to actually let them let you use the money. So like buyer's closing costs and stuff like that. There's property insurance, there's utilities, and then there's selling costs. So again, title and escrow, and the property taxes and stuff like that. And then you have to figure out how much profit you want. So you can see, and this isn't everything, you can see that there's a lot of things that 70% rule doesn't really show you, that I think people don't really realize when they're running their numbers on how to flip a house. So I feel like you really need to get good at figuring out these numbers. So next is acquiring the finances. How are we going to get this money? So there's a couple of options. I think what's really popular is using a hard money lender, or you could use a private money lender, or you could use, your own funds, or you could use some combination of all of those things, right? So just to talk about hard money lenders, I know a lot of times we hear those commercials on TV, on the radio, and they're like, oh, flip houses with no money. And people really think that like, oh, I could just go to a lender and they're going to give me 100% of the purchase price, and they're going to give me 100% of the rehab, and I don't have to contribute anything, and I'm going to make this money and it's going to be great. And that's not how it works. So hard money lenders, at least the ones that I've come across, if you know someone who's giving 100% of both, please let me know, because I don't know of anyone. But they're not going to give you 100% of the money. At most, they'll give you anywhere between 80 and 90% of the purchase price, and anywhere between 80 and 100% of the renovation budget, which means you need to come up with the following. You need to come up with that 10 to 20% difference on the purchase price. You also would need to come up with that 0 to 20% difference on the budget. And as I mentioned a couple of slides ago, one of those things that you have to account for when you're running your numbers are things like hard money, the fees that hard money lenders charge you to get a loan. So hard money lenders usually charge anywhere between 2 and 4 points for the origination for you to actually get the money. And for those of you who do not know, 1 point equals 1% of the loan amount. So if you had $100,000, 1 point is 1%, and 1% of $100,000 is $1,000. Also, a lot of hard money lenders, they have other like junk fees, like I don't know, just like some bullshit fees, like I'm sorry, some like just some fees like filing fees, and we got to review your app fees, we got to make sure you're really a human fee, like just other stupid fees. And then if you're going off market, usually you need to decide, like, a lot of times when people go off market, they're like, oh, we'll pay your closing costs. So if you're going to pay your seller's closing costs, you have to account for that when you're running the numbers as well. You have to account for, the transfer taxes, the escrow fees, title fees, other little fees. And then a lot of hard money lenders, especially if you're new, they want you to have at least 6 months of payment reserves in the bank. So that's important. And then also the way hard money works, yes, they will give you, anywhere between 80 to 100% of the rehab costs. However, the way most of them work, you have to do the rehab, some of it, in order for you to get reimbursed. They don't give you money and then you do it. So you have to get started, you have to have what I like to call a little bit of gas money to get the project going, right? Because with hard money, they're only going to reimburse you based upon the work that you have completed. There are some hard money lenders, shout out to Orchard Lending. They'll give you, I forgot what their rule is exactly, but they'll give you like 20% of the project as long as it's no more than like $30,000 or something like that, whatever the guidelines are, but they'll give you that little bit of gas money. I think a lot of first-time house flippers, they don't fully understand that concept, that the hard money process when it comes to the renovation money is a draw process where you have to do it and then get reimbursed. And I think that's where a lot of first-time flippers kind of get caught up. And then again, like I said, carrying costs in the project, the property taxes, property insurance, stuff like that. So pillar number 3, take home message. I just want to make sure you have enough gas in the tank. If you're going to do a house flipping project, make sure you have sufficient capital to get through the project by going through all those lists of, numbers that I mentioned. And, this is where you're probably like, well, Crystal, I don't have, that 20 to 30% or whatever. How can I get that? And this is where a private money lender can help and serve as what we call a gap funder. So that gap funder is, someone who will fund that, 10 to 20% difference in the purchase price, fund whatever difference you need for the rehab project, and then fund whatever you need for like maybe to make the monthly payments and whatever other costs that are associated with that. So that's how you can get started. Also, if you work up to a relationship enough with a private money lender, I would super encourage that, because private lenders are a lot flexible in terms of their especially in terms of their fees. They don't necessarily charge as much origination fees and stuff like that. They're a lot flexible on their draw process. They're a lot flexible on their junk fees. So I would encourage people to try to reach out to a private money lender and develop a relationship with a private money lender. And you're probably like, well, Crystal, how do I find private money lenders? I'll tell you, one of my best ways to find private money lenders, number one, is just networking, letting people know you do. Next time you go to the doctor's office, next time you go get your hair done or whatever, like, you never know, like, people may have like, $50,000 saved up. Like, you never know. Don't just be judging people. Just let people know what you're doing. And you could, they could serve as your gap funder, right? Because they might not have the time or the knowledge or whatever, but you have the knowledge, and y'all could work together and come up with something. So that's what I want you guys to learn from pillar number 3. So pillar number 4 and 5 was planning and renovating. And I think a lot of times people think the general contractor is just going to plan everything, and if I hire a GC to renovate, I could just wave a magic wand, tell them make the house look pretty, and come back in 6 weeks and it's done. But, you know, lack of planning is probably why most first-time house flippers fail or have a bad experience. And they think all contractors are evil because they're just not fully planning things out. So in the planning process of house flipping, here's a couple of considerations. Number one, you need to decide if you are going to be the GC, or if you're going to hire a GC. You need to consider if this house is going to need any type of architectural plans or any type of permits or stuff like that. You need to understand the permit process and the timelines for the permit process, because I think a lot of times people think like, oh, I could just go build this new house. It'll only take me like a month to get plans. Like, nah, that's not how it works. You really need to understand the timelines. You need to understand if there's any type of HOA or local restrictions. And super, 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 super important, develop a detailed scope of work. I cannot stress enough the importance of developing a detailed scope of work. And a scope of work is basically an itemized list of everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. An itemized list of everything that you want done to the property. Like if you want new lights, make sure you say you want 6 recessed lights, because if you ask for a 7th recessed light, trust and believe, they're going to hit you with what's called a change order, which is basically, well, you didn't tell me about this 7th extra recessed light, so you know that's going to be an extra $500. And you're like, what, bro? So like, you have to have a detailed scope of work, and I try to make my scope of work as detailed as possible. Like, again, going off on these recessed lights, I'll be like, I want 4 inches. They better be round. All the trims better match. Don't be trying to have mismatching trim. And the temperatures on the light have to be between 3,000 and 4,000. I know you're probably like, what? Like, does it really need to be that detailed? Yes, because a lot of contractors just want to like go from job to job. And that scope of work is going to be your, you know, your kind of like your receipt of like, this is what we said. Because if it's not on that paper, all this like handshake, gentlemen's like, you know, rules and stuff like that does not work in construction. You have to be like, this is what we discussed. And they'll be like, oh, okay, you're right. So have a detailed scope of work, please. Dealing with contractors. Dealing with contractors, I feel usually gives most aspiring house flippers the most anxiety. And I think that's because, I don't want to say all contractors are evil, but I think sometimes we expect the contractors to do a lot of different things, to wear a lot of different hats that they don't really do. Like, contractors are doers. That's what I've noticed from my experience. They do what you tell them to do based on that scope of work. And a lot of them aren't necessarily like good inspectors, or a lot of them aren't necessarily good at like planning and managing, even though they should be. A lot of them aren't. So again, that's why I said having a detailed scope of work is critical. So again, the success or the level of anxiety that you experience while you're doing a house flip project will be determined by how well you plan for the rehab. Our next pillar is managing. So how well you plan will determine how well you manage. So it's important to manage and set the expectations about the work that will be done, and also about when payment will be given. So a couple of things when you're managing the rehab process, here's some documents that I feel like are extremely important. Again, that scope of work, if, like I said, if it's not on there, it won't get done, and they will charge you extra for it. And that's what we call a change order. Number 2 is a work schedule and a timeline. So it basically outlines when the work will be completed by. So for example, if you brought a house, just say, you know, demo will be done by January 15th, rough plumbing will be done by this date, electrical by, you know, February 1st, stuff like that. So that kind of helps keep the project moving along. And again, it sets expectations. And then the third thing to help manage the rehab process is the payment schedule. Don't fall into the trap of like, oh, you know, the rehab is going to cost $50,000. It's going to take 10 weeks. So I'll just pay you like 5 G's every week and we're good. No, you have to have a payment schedule that is based on milestones, right? So example, if after you do the clean out, I'll give you $1,000. After you do demo, $2,000. So basically after you do both, you get $3,000. After you do the rough plumbing and it passes inspection, then you will get your amount for the rough plumbing. After you do your drywall and you pass that screw nailing inspection, whatever you call it, then you will get your payment for your hanging your drywall. When the property is clean every week and you want some money, then I will cut you a check. You have to be super clear with your expectations, because otherwise, hey, Crystal, I need some money and I need it by tomorrow. Like, no, that's not how this works. So you have to be, again, clear with your scope of work, your work schedule, and your payment schedule. And some other management considerations, again, is as a house flipper, you have to manage and understand the hard money lender draw process. That's what I touched upon earlier. You have to understand how you get reimbursed so that there's no money delays affecting progress. And this is what I mean. So say, for example, you owe $5,000 because the rough plumbing was completed. You don't want to be like, oh, okay, well, I gotta go call up Anchor Loans and tell them to come out, and then it takes them 2 to 3 days for them to come out. Then it takes another 2 to 3 days for the inspector to write their report, and then it takes another 2 to 3 days for the money to actually hit your account, and then the contractor gets paid. Like, that's just going to be because most contractors, if they're not paid, they're not going to continue to work. So you have to understand the draw process, and you have to understand to plan ahead of time for that, because you don't want the project stopping because the money stops. Trust me, the project stops, the money stops, the project stops. You don't want that. Another management consideration are weekly check-ins. Walk the project with your contractor, making sure everything is on track. Ask them, is there anything you need from me? Like, hey, I see these rough electrical wires are up. Are you going to need some, finished electrical thingies from me, ceiling fan or whatever? Just like, let me know. Also, just pop up on people. I randomly walk through because I don't want them thinking I have a schedule, because they're going to make sure that they have somebody if they notice that I come Tuesdays at 10 a.m. So just pop on the project on random times, dates. Don't be predictable. And then lastly, job site flow. If you are responsible for providing finished materials, which I would recommend people do, make sure they are on the job site before they are needed. Like, especially when it's stuff like that might need to be special order, like tile or flooring or something like that. Make sure those things are on the job site when they are needed. So again, there are no delays in the workflow of the project. So take home message for this pillar: manage the GC by setting clear expectations via that scope of work, those payment schedules, and that work schedule. Our next pillar was flipping the house. So what I mean by that is after you've renovated, it's all done, deciding if you're licensed, if you're going to sell it yourself or hire a real estate agent. I'm not licensed. I prefer to use a realtor. Like I said, I can't multitask. Usually by the end of a rehab, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. And I just feel like that's not my best. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want you coming through my house, nitpicking it after I didn't spent 6 months on it. I just don't want to deal with that. So I choose to hire a real estate agent. And just again, like when I'm doing rehabs, I always have the end buyer in mind before I start the rehab. Just so that gives me sort of like some clues about design and stuff like that. And I look at comparable sales to see what the buyers are liking. Like, oh, they offered $52,000 over asking for that property. What does that property have that I probably need to put in my property? And then just working with your real estate agent to build a hype, like making sure your agent has like coming soon campaigns, staging quality photos, great marketing materials for the open house, making sure the house is easy to show. So the last pillar is wrapping up and review. So what grade would you give your rehab? And when I'm done with a flip project, I like to, go over actual versus my projected versus my actual budget, my projected versus my actual ARV, my projected versus my actual timeline, and my projected versus my actual profit. And I do that just to kind of like analyze where I could get better. And then I also want to evaluate the rehab process, right? How can I improve? Where can I improve on my timelines? And basically do what I like to call what in the business world, we call it SWOT analysis. And SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So strength of the project, was I really good with the hard money loan draw process, right? Weakness of the project, oh, I didn't get the materials on time for the job site, so we had some delays. Opportunities, like, oh, I'm looking at comparable sales and I'm seeing a lot of 3.2s that are really selling well. Maybe there's an opportunity to take a house and add on square footage and create some value there. And threats, like, okay, I realize my projected budget versus my actual budget was a lot higher, especially with this framing line item, because for some reason the trees got together and was like, yo, we're gonna charge 10x the amount on wood pre versus now versus pre-COVID. Anyways, I'm going on a rant right now. But yeah, so those are some things that I do when I'm, doing a house flip. So I hope this information was beneficial to y'all, for you guys. Just so you know, if you're interested in anything that I talked about, you're like, yeah, I think I want to learn about this. I have a pilot program of what I call I Got the Keys Now What, which is basically, I came up with this title because this is exactly how I felt. Like, I remember my first flip project, I was like, okay, I knew how to find it and stuff like that. I think again that was like a probate. I knew how to analyze it and whatever, and I knew how to acquire it. Go through the hard money process, whatever. But I feel like that's where a lot of education stops and where a lot of education lacks, unless you're doing some really expensive 20, 30, 40, $50,000 program. I'm not going to drop no names. And I don't even know if they teach that, but I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily talk about planning. I don't think a lot of people necessarily talk about managing and stuff like that. So that's why I created this program. I Got the Keys Now What, because that's literally how I felt after we closed. The real estate agent called me and he's like, let's meet to get the keys. And I'm like, cool. And I open the door. I'm like, what do I do? Like, I know I'm supposed to make the house pretty, but I was kind of like, what do I do? So this is a step-by-step program. It's going to walk you through managing and planning for your first profitable house flip. Like, talking with contractors, working with contractors. And like I said, the reason why I created it, because I feel like there's a disconnect between homeowners and house flippers and contractors. And I think it's time that, the playing field gets leveled between, people who are renovating and contractors. Because I feel a lot of times people feel like, contractors speak construction, or they don't know enough construction speak in order to do house flipping. And that's not true. And like I said, this course, I created it with a contractor, Black guy who's been, he flips houses himself. He's an investor, good friend of mine. He's a general contractor, has been a general contractor for like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And we really go in depth about renovating and not having you, left out on that step. So here's just some things that I'm covering during the program: creating your vision, your renovation spot, plans, permits, budgets. There's a module where I go literally from the foundation to the toilet paper holder. So I'm trying to go through everything, every step of every, aspect of house flipping, project walkthroughs, kitchen design, bathroom design, how to vet contractors, just that scope of work, and how to protect yourself with some of those paperworks that I mentioned, coordination and managing and wrapping up the project. So I know y'all probably like, well, Crystal, I'm interested in how much that costs, because that's usually what Black people, that's the first question we got. So I'm normally charging $497 for the general public, but since this is a pilot program and since I want to show y'all love, I'm not going to charge y'all that. It's going to be $97. If you go to this website, I Got the Keys Now What, and enter the code BBTB for Buy Back the Block, and you'll get access to the program. So if you're interested, you could go directly to that website. If you have more questions, or even if you just want to connect with me on social media, I'm on Instagram and Facebook at SoCal Flip Gal. And then my email is down there. You can email me at info@socalflipgal.com. So that's all I got for y'all. I hope y'all appreciated the knowledge that I dropped. I hope it was beneficial. I hope it wasn't just something, oh yeah, we've already heard all this before. So at this time, I'll open it up for questions. I don't know. Are there any questions in the chat, Danny?
Yeah, we do. So first off, man, thank you so much, Crystal, did you make this PowerPoint?
I put the information together and I hired somebody on Fiverr to make it.
I need your Fiverr guy. This PowerPoint is incredible. My PowerPoint suck. I'll be having the worst pictures and basic text. I'm like, I need some help, man. I ain't got the eyes.
Canva. Canva is like the yeah.
Yeah, you did a really good job. So thank you so much for dropping all of this information on everybody. I know it was a lot, for some of you guys to take in, but this whole like journey of flipping houses, it takes you up and down and around, but you definitely want to learn it from somebody who's doing it, like Crystal. Let me hit these questions really quick. The first question I had was, how do we know if our timeline is realistic? That came from Tiffany.
How do we know if our timeline is realistic? I'm assuming you're talking about like your timeline in terms of how long a project should take.
Yes.
So one of the things that I do is I don't create my own timelines. I make the contractor create a timeline. So if they think that they could get something done in a week, I expect it to get done in a week. And then I have leverage that's like, hey man, you said it was going to get done in a week. It's been 13 days. What's up? So I usually make the contractor come up with timelines. So that way it kind of helps me when they're behind. I'm like, yo, you said this, like what's going on? So I don't create timelines myself.
Okay. And the
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. The next question I had here, is this Kayla? Am I pronouncing this the right way? If not, I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your name. It says most challenging part is finding good help and contractors. Any advice on how you hire? That's a really good question.
Yeah, so like I said, you have to decide if you want to hire GC or not hire GC. So if you don't hire GC, you're responsible for hiring all those subcontractors. So for every trade that you need, you're going to have to find and hire those people themselves. And I can't even begin to tell you, like, some of these, I don't know what it is about construction, but I feel like it's like the group of like the most unreliable, I could do everything people, and they really can't. Like, I don't know what it is about construction, but to your question, like, wait, I forgot what the question was. I just got like,
wait, how do you hire? How do you find good contractors?
The first one is vetting them and talking to referrals. So number one, talking to referrals and making sure you're asking good questions. Like, I think a lot of times people will ask for a referral, they'll talk to a referral and be like, oh well, how did you like working with him? Oh, it's okay. Like, you need to ask more in-depth questions, like, how was his communication? Did he show up to the project every day, or was he just there, Mondays and every third Tuesdays or something like that? Do they work a full day? I think knowing those really in-depth questions to really vet contractors is important to pick one, because I think a lot of times people don't necessarily understand that. So I hope that answers your question, and if it doesn't, let me know.
Great answer. One thing that you guys might not know is that the construction industry, this was something that threw me off, right? GCs, contractors, are the biggest divas in the world.
Yo,
it's the craziest thing ever. Like, it's like this manly industry where everybody's like, you got hard hat, lunch pail, beat up jeans, steel toe boots, but the biggest divas you gonna ever, Mariah Carey and them got nothing on these dudes. Trust me. They walk in, man, each one of them snitches on the other one, right? So you come in, man, the painter didn't clean up before you. Hey, man, chill out, man. It's the craziest thing ever, man.
And they all criticize each other's work, like, oh, this drywall isn't already. Like, man, just go do those windows. Like,
yeah. I mean, ain't you the roofer, man? Why you talking to me about the drywall, man? So, yeah, these guys are crazy, man. So just be ready for that when you guys are dealing with them, because they can be a handful.
Come
You
on.
got to managing personalities is a big part of managing a flip. And then also, just to answer your question, to dump my 2 cents on it, I recently made a mistake on one of my own flips, when hiring
Hey,
an electrician.
stay straight. Stay straight. Walk
I might
ahead.
mute somebody.
There you
Hold on,
go.
real quick. Where
Hey,
is my mute
walk
function?
ahead. Keep straight, boo.
Hold on, y'all. Okay, I muted everybody. Crystal, you can unmute yourself if you want to. So on one of my recent flips, my GC, his electrician came in hot on the price. Basically meaning he came in a lot higher than I planned on paying. And he wouldn't budge, and I was mad because we give him a lot of work through my GC. So I'm like, hey man, it's me. Go ahead and lower the price. You make up for it on another job. I give you a lot of work. He didn't want to move. So what I decided to do, and having bright ideas, right? I decided, well, I'm just gonna go find another electrician. So that's what I started working on. And one of my tactics is always to try to get somebody through a referral, right? Because working with somebody who's in the business, if Crystal gives me an electrician, I'm going to trust it a lot more than somebody who I just found out the yellow pages. Well, the problem was that I didn't know enough about the investor. The investor who referred the electrician to me, he was also a private lender. So I assumed that because he had money, he was lending money to other people. He was working with quality people. No, in fact, this guy was he has to be a huge cheapskate, because this electrician is terrible. And I didn't do what I normally would do for any other electrician. I didn't run his license number. I didn't make sure the license was really under his name. And turns out the license is not even under his name. It's under another guy. He's working underneath somebody else. And then he's not showing up for the job, and he's not wanting to do things according to the way my GC wants them to be done. And it's a whole thing. And that was my fault, because even though you get somebody through a referral, just know from the headache that I'm going through right now, don't leave it at that. That's a very good first step, because you're like, okay, I got an electrician or I got a plumber or whoever from somebody who's involved in the business right now.
Right.
But make sure that you verify yourself. Let me see the insurance paperwork. Let me see the bond. Let me see your license, or look the license number up. If you don't see that, don't hire them.
That is 110% true. When I've lost money dealing with bad contractors, it's because maybe I had like multiple rehabs going at a time, and I just sort of was kind of like scrambling, and I didn't really vet them like I should. I didn't, like Danny said, I didn't go to the California contractors website or whatever, verify that, Joe Smith company, Joe Smith actually owns it, the personnel and stuff like that, that they're actually licensed, is not active. And even just doing a simple Google search of their contractor's name and business name and stuff like that. I forget what this one website is, but sometimes you'll see some bad reviews, and I did that for this one contractor that I hired, and I was like, dang, I could have saved myself thousands of dollars if I just did that. And I don't know why I didn't do it, because when it comes to any other man, I'm gonna Google the shit out of him. So I don't know why I didn't do it for this one. But yeah.
Yeah, man. Make sure, like I think it might have been Anthony said, trust but verify. We have another question here that says, where can I find a detailed scope of work template for a flip?
I don't so I have detailed scope of works where I actually kind of go over some scope of works inside my course. I go over some that I feel are bad and some that I feel are really good. I have not come across like a detailed scope of work, because I just feel like every house is unique. So you can't like just grab a scope of work from here and then just give it to a contractor for this house, because every scope of work is unique. But I mean, like every scope of work should talk about, demo, should talk about landscaping, should talk about, painting, drywall, plumbing, electrical, any foundational work, any type of structural things you're going to do. Stuff like especially the main stuff, any type of HVAC stuff you're going to do, any type of roofing, any type of windows. So scope of work should talk about that. And also your scope of work should include I have templates for like some of that other detailed stuff, like painting, like, all right, in this bedroom the walls have to be green, but in this bedroom the walls have to be red or whatever, something like that. Tile in this bathroom, I want this tile, it got to be installed like this way, you have to use this grout. I think that's important too, as part of the scope of work, painting and tile, having a outline of what you want. And then also with the scope of work, I think a lot of times where a lot of people get tripped up are the finishes, like who's gonna pay for what. Are you paying for appliances? Are you paying for, or is he paying for them? Are you gonna pay for that ceiling fan, or do you expect the contractor to pay for it? And then another thing is getting materials to the job site, specifying who's going to deliver what, because I don't know what it is. Again, something about getting materials from the store to the property, it just seems like this convoluted, complicated thing that I don't feel like it should be. So I think those are just some tips that I feel like you should be sure to incorporate in your scope of works.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Crystal, you remember for those of you guys who don't know, Crystal and I did we meet at Flip Packing Live? I think we did, right?
Yeah, you're actually saved as Danny Carter, FHL.
Oh yeah, okay. So so Flip Packing Live is like a live flipping conference that was held by a I guess you would call it a mastermind that Crystal and I had belonged to at one point. And Crystal, you remember the guy who flipped the house in 1 week?
I do remember that presentation.
Yeah,
I don't remember the details of it, but I do remember that.
He did a full house flip in 1 week,
Yeah.
and it was because of the way he was able to plan. And when you talked about getting materials to the house, one of the things that I remember from that presentation was that he had every detail laid out. He made sure that the guys didn't have to leave to go get lunch. He had lunch catered on the property. He made sure the materials were delivered to the property, because if you think about it, he was talking about how much time gets wasted just leaving your job site, going to the store, coming back. Even if there's somebody there working while one guy leaves, that's still manpower that you're down that could be moving the project along further. So
right.
He goes ahead and pays the extra amount to get the materials delivered. And you guys might want to consider doing that.
Right,
As
exactly.
Well. We have another question here. Does Lowe's or Home Depot have a template?
Does Lowe's or Home Depot have a template?
Like a scope template or something.
Oh no, I no, they don't.
Okay.
But Lowe's or Home Depot, if you are, another tip that like I don't know a lot of people know, anytime you're buying appliances from Lowe's or Home Depot, make sure you tell them to run it through the bedroom. Yes, Home Depot calls it bedroom, Lowe's calls it, I don't know what they call it. But make sure you tell them to run it through that. It's basically some computer software ninjas in a basement somewhere that gives you a discount on your appliances. And it's not even appliances, just if you have like a large order, I think it's like maybe like 1,500 or 2,000 or more, they'll give you like a discount. So just make sure, and it only takes like 5 minutes. Like I thought this bedroom was some complicated room where you actually had to submit and like, hey, please give this poor little Black girl a discount. Like, no, they just put it in the computer and it spits back out, oh, you'll only have to pay this much. And usually at least you'll save taxes. So I usually at least save like 10%. So that taxes is usually what I save. And that's really good if you're buying any type of appliances or windows, stuff like that. Submit it to the bedroom.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Anthony asked, do you recommend any software for designing your project?
No, I know when you're doing like plans and stuff, the architects use a program called CAD. I believe it's called CAD. But you have to have like a license and know how to use it. But that's just for like the floor plan. For the design, all I do is I go on Houzz, I look on pictures and stuff like that, and I just draw inspiration for other houses in the neighborhood, and not necessarily only other houses in the neighborhood, but also other houses that are in neighborhoods maybe 1 or 2 price points above. So like, for example, that house that I gave an example earlier, right off of King and Western, I would check out, all right, what's going on in West Adams, what's going on in Culver City, what are they doing in Westchester? Because I know those buyers who are priced out of those areas are buying over here and driving these prices up, like Danny said earlier. So what can I do to add that little extra, factor so that they'll be interested in buying my house off of King and Western? So I don't necessarily have any design software or anything that I use. I just see stuff that I like in other projects, like on Pinterest and Houzz, and I just copy paste.
There it is. There it is. Tiffany also asked about do you put a temporary security system in your house?
So I do not put sometimes I'll put like a fence, so you'll see like the construction fences. One time I did go through the trouble of doing a security that was 24/7 monitoring, and I did that because I was like traveling a lot. I was going to be out the country, so I did that so I could kind of monitor when the workers are coming in and out. But I don't necessarily recommend that. I usually don't put a security in until it's close to being done and I could get electrical and I could get Wi-Fi in there. And I use Simply Safe, which is a alarm company that doesn't have contracts. It's really easy to install, and so I'll just use that.
Okay. And I recently had my first break-in.
Thank you.
Using a Simply Safe system, and the system did not go off.
What?
So yeah, so they cut the power to the house, and the backup battery is supposed to kick in even when the power is off, but it didn't. And then Simply Safe kind of gave me like not the answer I was looking for when I was asking them why it didn't do what it was supposed to do. So just a heads up, you got to keep an eye on Simply Safe going forward. They're not the company that they used to be. The customer service is not all that dope. So I'm officially switching over to Ring. Like I'm getting Wi-Fi for the house.
I put a Ring camera. So I always put a Ring doorbell, and then I put a Ring camera somewhere. Okay. So I'll have Simply Safe and I'll have Ring.
Okay.
For cameras, yeah.
And Tiffany also asked what the name of the Lowe's bid system is.
Oh, I forgot. They'll know. I mean, if they don't know, the manager will know. I forgot what it's called.
It's okay. You don't have to remember. It's okay. Thank you.
Like, can you submit it to the thing where I get the discount? I don't know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you better get the manager over here.
Funny. Well, I don't see any more questions. What I'm going to say to you guys before you hop off is Crystal having that course for $97 is a steal. And I'm not here to sell because that's not my thing. My job is to bring you information as a community that you might not know, that you might know, or maybe I'm bringing you something that you know, but from a different perspective, or somebody to teach it in a better way than you've seen it. Hopefully that's the goal, is to try to uplift. But if I know somebody's good at what they do, I will vouch for them as a person. And I know that Crystal is dope as hell at what she does. And you're not going to find, anybody else to give you that kind of information. A course created with a contractor for $97. I'm telling y'all right now, I'm going to buy it. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to send you the receipt. If you want the receipt to know whether or not you should buy it, all you got to do is just email me. I'll send you a copy of my receipt when I buy it. Because being able to ride with a contractor, so to speak, and be able to understand that language and kind of what goes on, that's not something that you get every single day. And not only that, when it comes to education and wanting to level yourself up, an old saying that I heard was, when you pay attention, right? So I know we have this thing in our community. I would see this dusty, that's what I'm gonna call it, a very dusty mentality, where people say, man, you got the information, you just need to give it away to the community. Why? All you're gonna do is squander it because you didn't have to pay anything for it. So if you believe in yourself and you believe that you want to take the next level up, then invest in yourself and get with some people who actually can help instruct you and point you in the right direction. So like I said, me, myself, I just made a mistake with an electrician that I hired, and I'm very transparent when it comes to, when I drop the ball. So I'm gonna grab the course, not only just support my sister, but to also learn something. Yeah, being able to learn from the contractor, I'm telling you, like it's priceless. The better that you can get with like being able to speak contractor and knowing the trades, and by the trades I mean plumbing, electrical, HVAC, which is your heating and air conditioning, and then drywall, like in roofing, the more you learn about those trades, the more dangerous you're gonna become as an investor.
Right. And I mean, just to clarify, the course isn't how to become a contractor. It's more so how to think like one, or how they should think, so that you could plan and manage and not have like a very bad experience, if that makes sense. So it's really about, like I said, how to plan, and a lot of that is understanding the different trades, not just so you could speak, contractor construction 101. I'm not in there showing you how to change out a light bulb or nothing like that. It's just going over what are the basics so that you kind of understand and you don't feel completely, like a fish out of water when they're talking about something, right? Like you don't feel like when they're like, all right, you're gonna need these type of windows with, making sure the U factor is this and the whatever is that. Like you feel like, okay, I know what he's talking about. So that's the point of the course. It's not to make you become so sufficient in construction that you could be a contractor, but it's to make you understand and think how contractors should think, so that you could properly communicate what you want and you don't end up in this, well, I thought this was going to happen. Well, no, you said this was going to happen. Well, this is going to be an extra, blah, 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 blah. That's the point of the course, is to avoid all that extra, conversations that didn't have or you thought was going to happen, because that's where a lot of the breakdown comes. And I think a lot of the breakdown comes is because people don't fully understand the renovation process. And like I said, they expect the contractor to, they kind of tell the contractor, yeah, I want a new kitchen, just make me a new kitchen, where you have to tell the contractor, you want a 36-inch stove? Do you want a 42-inch stove? Do you want, under cabinet lighting and stuff like that? Because they have to plan those things out. And I think because you don't know how to properly describe what you want, you don't know how to properly plan those things out, you don't know how to properly communicate, that's where a lot of the breakdown comes in, where people feel like, contractors are nickeling and diming them and they ain't shit. And I'm not saying that they aren't, there's bad apples everywhere, but when you kind of understand that, you can communicate those things better and you can have a much, pleasant rehab experience.
Yeah, good point. I have two hands raised. I got Deontay and then Toya. So Deontay, you want to go ahead?
Is that Deontay that I know?
Deontay, you want to unmute?
Oh, what's up, sir? I haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. My question to you, and I see you doing really good things here. Um, if you're not offering 70 cents minus repairs, what are you offering on properties now? How are you offering? What are you offering? Is it what percentage are you using?
I saw you in a Jerry Malcolm video. He ain't tell you the answer to that?
No, Jerry actually hasn't told me his answer to that. Jerry's all over the place with that. So I want to know what you are offering.
I was just messing with you. Like, hold up.
Yeah.
I don't always, like I said, I actually go through the numbers and figure those things out. Sometimes I don't do it because I stick to certain areas, to where if it's a zip code and I know the bath and the, square footage like that, I know like off the top of my head if it's a good deal or not. But I don't do this. I mean, like I actually like go through and be like, all right, this is what I feel the ARV is. This is how much the rehab is going to cost. This is the carrying cost. This is that. And I really try to subtract all those things so I could get really dialed in on my numbers. And it usually ends up being maybe like around like 85%.
Okay.
But it's also going to depend on what you're doing to the property. Like if I'm adding square footage and doing ADUs, that's really going to increase the value of the property. So I hope that answers your question. I can't tell you, oh, instead of the 70% rule, I'm using the 82% rule. Like, I can't tell you that. I really try to nail down and subtract my numbers and stuff like that, so I could get the most accurate and most accurate number possible, so I can know that I'm throwing my best number into the ring, and hopefully I'll get the property.
Right.
Did I
Okay.
answer your question?
Okay. All right. Yeah, that answered it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice
All right,
seeing
thanks.
you.
Good seeing you too. Take care.
Thank you for that question. Toya, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Hey, Danny. Hey, Crystal.
What up?
What up?
Oh, you need to be on here too.
Yeah, exactly. We got
Yeah.
another killer
Toya
rehab.
like to be in the corner, but I'm trying to
I wanted to hop
show your
on
face to the people.
I wanted to hop on and give a personal testimony to Crystal's course. Actually, she showed up, she and her contractor that she worked with the course on, came to a flip that I've been working on for seems like ever. And what I did was, like, I was just having so much trouble with this thing. So I kind of wrote down the things that I know that I needed to have done. And so when they did their walkthrough, they looked at what I had on my list, and then they went back and created their own list. And then Crystal came back and gave me additional points that I needed to jot down to move forward. So I just wanted to just let everyone know that, like, she's not out here just, talking this talk. She's actually walking this walk. And she's helped me tremendously. And the course is fire.
Thank you, boo. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you more than you know. We'll link up again so you can see where I am.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Anthony had one last question. He said, do you employ attorneys for asset protection, and what other attorneys should I think about?
Do I employ attorney? I don't employ them because I don't want them. I mean, I do have an attorney who, so when I purchase properties, I purchase them under a trust with my LLC as the beneficiary. So I have an attorney who does that for me. But that's like I have like a real estate attorney who does that for me, and I'll kind of bounce some stuff off of him for certain things. But aside from that, I don't want to have a real estate attorney that I'm just paying monthly just to pay them. I have like attorneys when I've gotten into some trouble and stuff like that, and I needed to, talk to an attorney about a property line dispute with a neighbor and stuff like that. But I don't have an attorney, if that makes sense. I hope that's answering your question.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking on it from the position of being a landlord as well, I have a real estate attorney who's kind of like a utility attorney for me. She's also an investor herself, so that helps a lot. So she helps. I bought the lease that I use from her, right? And I know it's ironclad because an attorney wrote it. She's a landlord herself, so the lease that I use, I got from her. She's on deck for anything that I need in terms of evictions and things like that. She stays in front of the eviction judge all the time, so she can get evictions streamlined very quickly. Anything real estate related, for the most part, she can handle. She doesn't handle anything estate related. So there's a separate attorney who does the estate stuff, the trust and, making the LLC the beneficiary, some of those, complicated systems like, master LLC, series LLC,
Right.
So all that stuff. But we keep somebody on deck usually who can answer the general questions and kind of keep our feet out the fire, so to speak.
Right. And just like a doctor, there's, specialists, there's generalists. Like, just asking for a real estate attorney, like, you have to know what you need them for. Like I said, sometimes you need somebody for probate, or sometimes you need somebody for having a property line dispute with a neighbor. Sometimes you need somebody to help clear up title or something like that. And even with that, there's some attorneys where they're like, we'll do probate, but we won't do probate litigation, or we'll do trust, but we won't do litigation, where we're actually like going, back and forth in front, and arguing and stuff like that. Like, so that's also a thing. And I think a lot of times with attorneys that I've noticed, you have to, how do I describe that? There's attorneys who are like bulldogs, like, yeah, let's go get them and blah, 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 blah. And then there's attorneys who kind of like think things through and aren't necessarily bulldogs. And like, you have to decide what you want sometimes, because I don't always want that bulldog who's going to drag this out and blah, 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 blah. Like, I want, do you get what I'm trying to say, Danny?
Yeah,
I definitely understand that also. Yeah, because and I also understand that every attorney is not created equal.
Right.
And to a point, and you pointed out exactly, is that certain attorneys, I mean, I wouldn't employ an attorney, for a long period of time, but I guess any questions I would have, for a particular attorney, whether it be asset protection or real estate attorney,
Right.
I would employ for that time being, just for that moment.
Right.
yep, absolutely.
Hey, is it okay if I give a shout out? Do I need to raise my hand or anything?
I
No,
think
you
you
good.
already did that.
Yeah.
Hey, this was my first time actually observing a flip session. I'm actually an investor. Okay, I'm giving y'all a shout out from Fort Worth, Texas. I was actually in California about 5 years ago. I've done like 30 something years in the Marine Corps, and I've done like 24 years there on the West Coast, San Diego, Camp Pendleton. I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but also my daughter used to live in Englewood. But I want to give y'all a shout out. I want to give y'all a shout out because it's something that Danny said, which is extremely important, what he talked about, and that was actually keeping the property in the family, avoiding probate court, and getting a trust. And let me say this here again. I'm speaking from experience, and a friend of mine from California told me about this Zoom thing. As a matter of fact, she's one of my clients, and I have a couple of businesses that I run, and I actually educate people on buying properties. I don't flip them. I buy them. I keep them. I buy them, keep them, put them in a trust, and I'm passing them down to my daughters. And I have two daughters. One is in the Air Force, and one is just moved from California here to Texas. And it's extremely important that you establish a trust, especially if you have a great portfolio like myself. I have an awesome portfolio, and I'm teaching my daughters and everything. But I think it's very imperative that what Danny talked about, and that was keeping things in the family and getting a trust to avoid the probate, because that stuff is crazy. I just went to New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and we did this with my father-in-law, who owns a bunch of properties. So we went to the lawyer and got everything into a trust to avoid the court costs and stuff like that. But I just want to commend everybody that's having the zeal and the desire to want to, build their assets and leave something to their family members, And it's imperative because the Bible speaks that even a father leaves something for his children's children. And I think with our color of skin, this is what we lack. We don't have the education and everything to the knowledge to do these things, which a lot of other ethnicity groups, they've been doing this. But I really appreciate this. I learned a lot about the flipping and stuff like that. And I thought about doing it, but I think I'm doing pretty good. I like to buy, hold on to them, and just run them out and stuff like that. But again, it's great to see our people sitting here, educating one another, building one another, helping one another out. And there's an old saying, the only time you look down on a brother is when you're giving them a hand and lifting them up. And that's what I see tonight. So I really appreciate everybody.
Wow. Thank you for that. That's what we do it for, is to try to correct some things that we need to correct. And listen, man, our community has been heading the wrong way fast for a long time. And the analogy I use is I tell people, hey, this community is like an 18-wheeler, right? And it's speeding the wrong direction, doing 100 miles per hour. And what we're doing now is first trying to figure out how to apply the brakes, and then figuring out how to turn it around to go the other direction, and then try to get some momentum, right? So even after you go ahead and you stop the truck and you get it turned around, you're not going to be back at 100 miles per hour right away. It's going to take time to build that momentum up. But if we all do our part, each one teach one, and focus on what we need to be doing, then we'll be all right. And you know, also shout out to you, sir, for leaving something for your daughters and for their kids. And it's just a beautiful thing to see, you know, beautiful thing. I try to focus on these things instead of the negative, because they got the negative all out there. But every time I hear these stories, it's like I know that it's working. We just got to get to each person and try to educate whoever we can.
Yeah, Tanya Mackey, I don't know if y'all know it. Tanya Mackey told me about you guys. So
Yeah, she told me too.
yeah, that's who told me to check you guys out. Because like I say, she's one of my clients, and we just purchased a sixplex for her down in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. And actually, I don't know if you guys know about the container homes and stuff. That's something huge too. But again, I just like the fact that we're trying to educate one another, build one another up. And listen, it could be done. You'll be surprised what what God has blessed me to be steward of. You know, my wife and I was getting ready to retire. I knew I was going to lose $5,000 a month. What do we need to do? We need to buy real estate. So we bought real estate, and it's been just like that 18-wheeler, but we're going in the right direction. And I'm putting my family on board. So you all are doing the same thing. So
that's a beautiful thing. Somebody asked for your information in the chat. They said they have a sister that just moved to New Orleans, and they're interested in investing there. I think you muted yourself, Jackie.
Jackie, you're muted.
You gotta unmute.
You're still muted. Did you mute everybody, Danny?
I might have on accident. You know.
Okay, you hear me now?
Okay,
yes,
we got
sir.
you. We got you.
Okay, well, my number is 504-222-4066. That's 504-222-4066. I just was down in New Orleans. I had a little group meeting with the family. I'm talking about what we talked about down there is what you guys are discussing, but we were talking about buying properties, holding on to them, renting them out, and just continue to build. So, but again, like I say, hey man, maybe we all need to just come together and have our own banks. I remember my pastor years ago saying, hey, the Black people need their own banks, and we do.
Yeah. Yeah, we absolutely do. So, you know, I'm glad to have everybody in here today. You know, please, if you are looking to get into the rehab game, even if you're not going to flip, if you're going to just be buying houses to hold, you know, like Jackie, but you're going through the rehab process, still consider buying this course, so that way when you're dealing with your contractors, you can give them the proper scope of work. You can be on the same page, communication will flow and things like that. So with that being said, Crystal, thank you so much. I'm getting ready to wrap up. Unless anybody has any more questions, we're getting ready to shut it down until next month.
Wait, Crystal, I have a quick question. I'm on your website now, and I am trying to find this course. So is it on the website? I don't know if you remember me. I met you in Egypt.
Trina, is that you?
Yes. And what's up? I shared your course just because, like, oh, Crystal doing something. I'm going to let the people know, right?
I appreciate you. She in New Orleans too.
So I get here, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I needed all this. I just was like a fool talking to this contractor. And I'm like, no, I'm about to buy the course. I'm on the website. I need, like,
you should see a button that says enroll now. There's a couple of them.
I'm gonna go look for the enroll. I guess because I'm on my phone, but I don't want to forget, because you know it's late here. And I was like, if I wake up in the morning, I might be on something else. But I'm thinking myself, just today, Crystal, I'm walking through this house, and just like the guy says, people leave houses. These are my parents, grandparents' home. They're sitting there rotting, and I'm getting them and taking care of them. I'm walking through a house, and I know this guy knew that I didn't know anything I was talking about. But I'm like, I'm not gonna let you game me.
Right.
So I'm like, I cannot believe I got the alert on my phone and listened, and I'm so thankful because I'm about to get this course. And
thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, you should see a button that says enroll now, and it'll take you to a page where you check out. Just be sure you put the coupon code in there, the BBTB for buy back the block, BBTB. And if you need, help or whatever, you know how to get me.
Yes, I was like, this is so amazing. Like, I just stumbled upon it, and I'm just looking like a fool with this plumber, and I'm like, no, I need this done. But yes, I'm
no
so
more
grateful
looking like a fool. We got you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for this, Crystal. Good to see you too,
Good to see
girlie.
you too. Thank you for showing up. Is that
No
that
problem.
everybody?
Wait, hold on. I'm on the website too. I'm on the desktop and I don't see the enroll now.
Yeah, I don't
Really?
see it either.
I don't see it, Crystal. I'm on
We
right now.
wanna sign up.
All I see is the three dots.
We want it now. We want it now.
Okay. Wait, hold up. Why is it?
It's forwarded to SoCalFlipGal.com.
Oh no. Okay, wait. Hold up. I think sorry y'all. I don't normally sell courses, so
Yeah,
I
I
think
hope
this
you drop
is
the
it.
ball on this one because I'm trying to look for it too.
Sorry,
It's okay.
y'all.
I'm glad I
I'm gonna
asked.
put it
I'm
in
like,
the
I'm
chat. Can y'all see my screen still or no?
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it.
Okay, so I put the link in the chat.
Okay.
And then I also have it up here on the screen. So it's SoCalFlipGal.com
Oh,
/
I see it.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
There we go. That's what we was looking for.
Yeah,
Hey, y'all
thank
had
you.
me up here. I'm glad y'all said something.
You
Thank
was
you.
about to lose your
I'm sorry,
bag.
y'all. This isn't, normally what I do.
No, I was like so glad I asked. I'm like, I'm about to enroll tonight. I need to find this button.
So y'all should see
Enroll now. It's
enroll
right up.
now. There's
It's
one
up
right
too.
here. This again talks about what's in the course and stuff like that, and then another enroll now button. So again, this is a pilot program. The reason why I'm giving the super discount is because I'm building it out and I am looking for people to give me some feedback on like, okay, this was good, this wasn't so good. I wish you taught about this. So I'm hoping that you guys give me some, feedback and review on how I could cater it more to what you need if it's not already.
Got my copy.
Huh?
I just bought mine.
Oh, I appreciate you,
You're the first one across the finish line. I'm trying to check out right now.
My credit card always saved in my browser.
Yeah, let me get.
Oh man! So when you sign up, you should get an email, a receipt from Samcart with your purchase, and then you should also get a second email from the course platform, which is called Kajabi. And Kajabi is where they'll have your login information and password, so you can access the course. It's not live; it's all pre-recorded, so you can log in, watch it whenever you want. So,
man,
and again, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram at SoCalFlipGal, or you can email me info@SoCalFlipGal.com.
Oh, ignore my DM because I was asking that same question, so it was already answered. So we good.
Okay.
There it is. All right, so we out of here, y'all. Until next month. And thank you all for stopping in. Thank you, Crystal, for everything. And y'all be safe out here.
Thank you, everybody. See you guys next month.
All right,
take it easy, y'all.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.